Good morning, or depending when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told, out of Voice for Radio. So today, we're going to be having a look at another one of these new cards from Unbroken Bonds. Well, actually, it's Double Blaze over in Japan, but it's Unbroken Bonds over here. We're having a little bit of a look at Mismagius. Ladies and gentlemen, this might be one of the most interesting, one of the most fun, one of the most useful cards that we've had in quite a while. But it does come with a massive caveat. So, Mismagius then. It's got 110 HP, which frankly is incredibly low. I mean, Tapu Koko is a basic that's got 110. This is a stage 1. Weakness to darkness we're not loving because Zoroark will have an absolute field day against this. And the resistance to fighting is good because it means that Boswell may well not have an absolute field day against this. So that's quite nice. The retreat cost of 1 is fine. It's low. To be honest, you're probably not going to be in the active at any point with this, so it's kind of irrelevant. And you do get a skateboard, I suppose, just in case you ever do end up in the active. And being a psychic type is quite nice. You've got Spell Tag, but again, Spell Tag is unlikely to be terribly relevant here. But you are hitting weakness against Buzzwole. So, you know, in your face, Buzzwole. But honestly, ladies and gentlemen, the most important thing here is the ability, which has been translated by the lovely David Hochmann over at limitlesstcg.com/translations. I, for one, am incredibly grateful that David brings us as many translations as he does, because my Japanese isn't quite good enough. The ability here says, once during your turn, you may knock out this Pokemon, then draw cards until you have 7 cards in hand. This is so interesting to me. First of all, and at its most basic, you look at it and go, oh, it's a draw engine. And it absolutely is a draw engine. And what I love about the idea of Mismagius here is just leaving it on the bench for emergencies. We've all been in that situation where we've got no cards in hand. Maybe our opponent ended us before it rotated out. Maybe our opponent used a delinquent before it rotated out. Or maybe we're all a little bit scared of that new Honchkrow GX, which can discard 2 cards from your hand. Yeah, and after something like a Marshadow, that would be pretty brutal. And we just leave it on the bench. And anytime you find yourself with no usable cards in hand, anytime you are absolutely desperate, you just rock. And you go, right, I'm just going to go with Mismagius here, knock it out, draw till I got 7 in hand. And that will absolutely work. Whether it's hand disruption, whether it's late game, whether you just played all the cards in your hand, that's okay. You can just draw until you've got 7. Now, it's not discard and draw, it's not shuffle and draw, it's draw until you have 7. So if you've got 5 or 6 cards in hand, probably not worth giving up a prize to use this. And that's the other thing we got to mention here, right? You've got to give up a prize to use this. This isn't free. This is way better than Oranguru. Heck, this is better than Dedenne. Dedenne is a GX that we're going to be getting in the same set. And Dedenne GX, when you play it onto your bench, you discard your hand and draw 6 cards. But this only gives up 1 prize. It's not a basic, so it can't be turned off with a Alolan Mark. And it's not limited to 1 per turn. More on that in a moment. But you do have to give up a prize to use this. And that could be an issue. It could be great. Just hang on. But it could be an issue. You give up a prize to use it. You hurt yourself to use it. You get your opponent closer to winning the game by using it. So essentially, there's 2 reasons we're using Mismagius. Either we really need to draw, or we're actually cool with giving up a prize. Now, we've talked about the emergency, leave it on the bench, use it when you desperately need to draw. But we also need to talk about the speed deck angle here. Because back when Shaman was legal, speed decks were a thing. So what you would do is you would just play a whole bunch of Shaman to the bench, and then you draw until you had 6 cards in hand for each. Well, here you're drawing until you've got 7. So what you do is you play a Shaman, draw until you got 6, play a bunch of cards, and then play another one, etc., etc. Well, we can do that with Mismagius here. The issue is every Mismagius gives up a prize, and this is a stage 1, not a basic. But there's nothing to stop you on turn 2 of the game using 2 or 3 of this ability and drawing an extra 15, 20 cards. Playing a speed deck using lots of item cards like Acrobike, etc. Cards that aren't going to clog your hand. And then using 2 or 3 Mismagius. Now, on the one hand, this is giving up 2 or 3 prizes. On the other hand, you might be creating a game state from which you basically don't lose, in which case it's absolutely worth doing this. In terms of a flat-out speed deck, this could work, although again it's incredibly risky. The other thing is here that sometimes giving up a prize is great. We've got a whole bunch of cards at the moment that are great but can only be used if you're behind on prizes. So we've got Counter Catcher, which is just a free gusting effect if you're behind on prizes. We've got Counter Gain, which reduces your attack cost by 1 if you're behind on prizes. We've got Counter Energy, which is 2 of any energy when attached to a non-EX, non-GX, and you're behind on prizes. And by the time this comes out in the same set, in fact, we're going to have Lieutenant Surge's Strategy, which lets you play an extra 2 supporters in addition to that one, just so long as you're behind on prizes. So there are going to be turns here where actually what you do is KO Mismagius and then go, I'm behind on prizes, and then all of a sudden you got Counter Catcher, Counter Energy, Lieutenant Surge's Strategy, and you get the excellent advantage of you might actually draw into the cards you want to use when you knock out Mismagius, because it doesn't just give up a prize, it also lets you draw until you've got 7 in your hand. And that's before we even get on to these specifics. So let's say, for argument's sake, you're playing something like Buzzwole. Buzzwole loves when your opponent has 4 prizes remaining. Because when your opponent has 3 or 4 prizes remaining, they can use B-String, which lets them search the deck for any 2 basic energy and attach them to an Ultra Beast. And when your opponent's got 4 prizes remaining, Buzzwole here hits 120 for a single energy. So let's say, for argument's sake, there's a Pikachu and Zekrom on your opponent's side of the field. You can double Mismagius, giving your opponent 2 prizes, while then drawing until you've got 7 cards in hand twice, and then being able to play B-String. So essentially draw until you've got 7, keep as few cards as you can, including any B-String you draw, and then draw until you've got 7 again, and then get a 1-hit KO for a single energy on a non-GX. And okay, you've given up 2 prizes to do it, but you've drawn a bunch of cards, you've set up your board beautifully with B-Strings, because you wouldn't be using a B-String on the single energy Buzzwole, that would be on other Pokemon, and then you've gone and got 3 prizes. Don't please be under the assumption that giving up a prize is always bad, and don't think that just because you give up a prize it isn't good draw power. You can't use this willy-nilly like you can something like Pidgeotto, where, worst case scenario, you put a card you'd rather draw on the bottom of your deck. No, you've really got to plan and use this properly. But when you do, you're drawing a whole bunch of cards and then taking advantage of a couple of other tricks. I mean, look, when Electrode Prime was a thing, not everyone, but a lot of people used Electrode Prime, which KO'd itself and then accelerated a whole bunch of energy, and then you'd go, oh, look, now I'm behind on prizes, and then they would go and play Twins, which let them search for any 2 cards, just so long as they were behind on prizes, which they were because they played Electrode. This can be really, really good. This reminds me a lot of Electrode cards like Electrode Prime. Drawing until you got 7 cards in hand is great. That's literally Uxie, and Uxie was everywhere. And yeah, giving up prizes is not always good, and you don't always want to give up prizes. But in any deck where you can afford to give up prizes because you're so fast and are going to create such a great board position it doesn't matter, or where you want to give up prizes, oh my lordy, this is wonderful. Now there is an attack here, we're not terribly excited about it because honestly it's all about the ability. Psychic, double colourless, 70 damage plus sleep. Now there are a lot of Psychic Pokemon that do 70 damage weirdly at the moment. We looked at Mewtwo the other day, that does. And what I'll say here is 1-hit KO on non-GX Buzzwole with a Choice Band KO on Buzzwole GX. I don't think it's a particularly good attack. Yes, you get sleep, and sleep is adorable and all that, but it's just too expensive for the attack cost. Psychic double colorless to do 70 damage, no. I'm not a fan, I don't love it, I don't think it's good enough. Fine in a pinch, fine if you're desperate, and if you happen to be playing a Malamar deck, you can, but then again, for pretty much the same energy cost on a Giratina, you can do 130. It's not a good attack, and I don't think you're ever really going to use it. But the ability's nuts. And I don't think it's an every deck ability. I think it's one that's got to be used here and there. But I can absolutely imagine Ultra Beast decks playing this, going nuts with Beast Ring and using stuff like Counter Catcher, while also getting a really good attack with Buzzwole. I'm a big fan of this, and I'm actually going to give it between 4 and 5 Wassies. We don't give half Wassies, that would be barbaric. I am well aware that this may end up being one about which I am wrong, but the fact of the matter is, it's great draw power, and is going to lead to some ridiculous turns, where you just pull off a bunch of moves that your opponent didn't think were possible. I like it. But I would very much like to know if you like it, so please do let me know in the comment section. Go nuts! But please do remember the rule, ladies and gentlemen. Be nice, would ya? And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at @TheWassie, and Twitch for some live action at twitch.tv/PTCGRadio. If you want to support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all of that, head on over to patreon.com/PTCGRadio, where you can do exactly that. And please do make sure you're checking out youtube.com/WassiePlays, where we talk about other games that don't have Pokemon in. But by far the most important thing, as always, look after yourselves till next time. Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.